No one is above the law. Give me a break. That is the title of an article that I'm going to amplify today on Sideline Sanity. Welcome. I'm Michele Tafoya, and David Harsanyi is going to be our guest. He is a prolific writer, senior editor at the Federalist, syndicated columnist, happy warrior columnist at National Review Online, an author. He's written so much. And this article that I just stated, no one is above the law, give me a break, is really important to read at this moment. And here's why. You may love that Donald Trump had to sit in court the other day and be arraigned. You may love that he was indicted. You may think he's the worst human being on earth. You may think this is the greatest moment America has seen in a long, long time. But if you believe, like everyone has said, that no one is above the law, I beg to differ. And so does David Harsanyi. I mean, there are so many obvious examples of people being above the law. We'll go through them for you. We're also going to talk a little bit about Clarence Thomas because he is being accused of things right now that are not illegal, but people want him impeached anyway. David Harsanyi is a tremendous, like I said, prolific writer, and this conversation is so important. Stay tuned. He's next.
For nearly 3 decades, she's reported the action from the sidelines. She started very young. She's covered the NBA, NFL, Olympics, and the college football and basketball national championships. And now, during these insane times in our world, Michele Tafoya thinks we need a serious dose of sanity. This is Sideline Sanity with your host, one of the sanest people on planet Earth, Michele Tafoya.
David Harsanyi, it's such a pleasure to talk with you. And in reading this piece, no one is above the law, give me a break, there were so many links back to all the people who apparently are above the law. And I was just reading and going down the rabbit hole, and the research is so good. And the point is so important. I think you and I heard the same thing. Kamala Harris was asked while she was down in Africa, what she thought about Trump being indicted and yada, yada. And she wouldn't comment, but it was the president that she was visiting of a particular country, and forgive me, I don't recall which one, who basically said, no one's above the law. It doesn't matter what their name is. If they've broken the law, they've broken the law. So I'm asking you first, do we know what law former President Trump is being accused of breaking?
Well, that's the ironic thing about all this. Once we saw the statement of facts and the indictment and stuff like that, we realized that actually there is no crime really that he's being indicted for that we know of, in the sense that in New York State, I'm not a lawyer. This is just how I'm reading it and how people I trust have explained it, is that in New York State, if you're doing some kind of you're putting numbers on the wrong side of the ledger, you're fudging numbers, whatever it is, there has to be, you do that to defraud someone. It's not just that you've put the number on the wrong side of the ledger. There has to be a victim to the crime.
Right.
But Alvin Bragg has not put forward any victim. There is no underlying felony, or, otherwise it would just be a misdemeanor and not very, very dramatic at all. And yet we have 34 separate charges. I think the case he was trying to make is that Donald Trump defrauded the American people during the 2016 election. And that's why these are felonies, which is, I don't think, how the law works. I mean, the Fifth Amendment says that when you're indicted for a serious crime, you need to be indicted. And there is no indictment here because there is no, he has not explained what the crime is.
Right.
Sorry to go off on a tangent there, but I mean, I think that's pretty important, right?
It is. And I think that we have seen far greater, I'm trying to think of the right word here, because I don't know if I want to use the word crimes, but we have seen grievances against people with far greater import. I'll just put it that way than this one. If the crime is that he paid Stormy Daniels $130,000 to be quiet and she signed a non-disclosure agreement, I'm not sure. I think that's immoral, but not illegal is your line, correct?
Yeah, it's not a crime. They keep putting hush money up there because hush money insinuates something devious, which maybe it is, right? But it's not illegal. people sign NDAs all the time. I work
Yes.
in companies where I've signed NDAs. I mean, not for having an affair with a porn star, but you know what I mean. So,
I do.
if you have a problem, and I do, with how Donald Trump acts in that instance, for and I think there's another woman involved too. I don't exactly understand. I think there are three different people, maybe.
Yeah.
But that is not illegal. The illegality of it supposedly was, I thought, initially sort of a campaign finance illegality of putting money, of putting things on the wrong side of the ledger, whatever it is, or putting it in a different pile of money, which I think these laws are kind of dumb anyway, because these dollars are fungible and you can basically find anyone you want, or ways to pay people off. So it seems like it's just kind of arbitrarily enforced anyway. But that's not a crime. People keep talking about that as if it's a crime. That's not a crime. The crime is that he defrauded someone. We don't know who. But, everyone's saying that these are rickety, or I should say, even on the left, there are plenty of lawyers who are like, this is pretty, rickety as far as charges go. But I think that we're overestimating juries. I mean, I could see a Manhattan jury still convicting him anyway, right? I mean, if they hate him enough, I don't really think it matters very much. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a really interesting point. And, it's unclear how this judge is going to treat this. I mean, if Trump's lawyers appeal the whole thing, will he toss it? Will he let it go forward? That's going to be interesting. But getting back to the crux of your article and away from Donald Trump, and I am in agreement with you. It doesn't matter what you think of Trump in this instance. I realize that's the name people love to hate. That's the man, orange man, bad, all the rest people love to hate. And so for many people, this is a joyful moment to see him indicted. But this line that no one is above the law, and Nancy Pelosi's stumble that he has a chance to prove his innocence. No. We are innocent until proven guilty in this country for now. And let's pray to God it stays that way. But you detailed a number of people. James Clapper, who lied under oath to Congress about spying on the American people. Remind people about that incident and why it is that he has never seen justice for this.
Yeah, James Clapper, I forget the years exactly, but he went in front of Congress. He was asked if the government was spying on American citizens. They're supposed to be spying on foreigners, and they could intercept Americans who were involved in those calls, but they were just spying on American citizens. And he was asked, and he said no. He declaratively said no. There was complete certitude in his statement, and it was completely a lie, we learned later. That is a crime. John Brennan, who oversaw the CIA spying domestically of Senate staffers over charges of torture and stuff like that. But whatever it was about, that was, he's above the law. And I think Eric Holder, who was subpoenaed to in a congressional investigation over what was that? Where the gun running.
Gun running to Mexico. Yeah, Fast and Furious. Was he basically laughed at Congress, never showed up. But Peter Navarro, who was a Trump, advisor on trade or whatever, he was handcuffed and thrown in prison when he didn't do that. So, listen, the idea that no one's above the law, and obviously the biggest and best thing to contrast would be Hillary Clinton, who James Comey basically admitted broke the law. He had to change the standards that he was using in the case of the server and the classified documents that she was emailing to avoid prosecuting her. Probably, if I give it the most generous reading, because maybe he thought it was bad for America to be prosecuting the future president, who he thought the future president was going to be. But whatever the case, she is above the law, and she's been above the law since the 90s. Let's be honest. So. No question. And we could go to Bill as well, who I think paid a couple women off with great sums of money, larger than $130,000. And so
he perjured himself. I'm sorry to interrupt. He perjured himself in front of under oath. He perjured himself under oath. There was no denying that, and he's above the law as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's frightening to me because we do see two tiers of justice in this country, and it's so egregious. And one of the problems, and I think you lay this out really well in your piece in the Federalist, is that the media, academia, Hollywood, whoever who has this tilt to the left, an extreme, I think, growing tilt to the left, will portray these things so differently. Like they don't care about true fairness, honest, transparency, truth, all of these virtues that we are supposed to hold really dear in this country. I mean, these are just a top of the heap concerns. But if it happens to their side, they find a way to massage the words, to talk about it in a way that makes it sound like it's not illegal. But when it's the other side, it's the conservative side. I mean, we're terrorists, we're evil, we're every word that they can find, worse than Trump, worse than Hitler, worse than Watergate, all of those phrases. How did this get so out of hand, do you think?
Well, that's a long story, probably. I'm not exactly sure how, but I do know that the left generally does not believe in neutral principles anymore. For them, Alvin Bragg ran for DA, not to say that everyone will be held equally, accountable for their misdeeds. He ran to say that we're going to implement social justice, that certain criminals aren't going to have to pay up for their crimes, things like that. And when you had, I think you brought up a very good point, when you have Nancy Pelosi saying Trump will have a chance to prove his innocence, which is the inverse of American legal system. That was not a mistake. I mean, everyone was saying, oh, she mistakenly said that. She didn't mistakenly say it. That's exactly what she was saying, and others were saying during the Kavanaugh trial, during the Kavanaugh debacle, whatever you want to call it. The thing was this: a lot of people would say, oh, well, the Kavanaugh thing wasn't a criminal trial. He does not afforded the same sort of due process that someone else is, but that is an ideal that we have. If you don't believe in that ideal in normal everyday life, then you're not going to really value it in your political and judicial culture either, right? And the thing was, they were accusing him of criminal behavior. They were accusing him of gang rape. They read that into the congressional record, but yet they did not have to want to or afford him the normal ideals of due process that everyone should be. It wasn't like a political disagreement they were talking about. They were talking about some kind of odious behavior. They accused him of things that would destroy his life, not just his political, career or whatever. So, yeah, I think that this kind of thing runs, everyone's like, or everyone, many conservatives say they're going to regret it. Democrats are going to regret it when the tables are turned and stuff like that. But I don't think so. I think this is all Calvin ball. They want the people with power. They think they run most institutions. They're happy when people with power get to decide these things arbitrarily. I think that they're perfectly fine with that.
Yeah, that is becoming more and more obvious. And if people want to say that what Donald Trump did impacted the 2016 election, I would suggest to them, okay, so how about Twitter, banning the New York Post story on Hunter Biden's laptop and the 50 intelligence folks who signed on to a letter that suggested that was all had all the earmarks of Russian misinformation, and they kept this fun little clause in that letter that made it sound like this could be. But Joe Biden got on stage and waved that page with 50 signatures of intelligence people saying this is Russian misinformation, and the story was hushed. And you're telling me that didn't impact the 2020 election?
People, when I wrote that, I'd have people on Twitter with all earnestness saying, but he tried to mislead people about what he had done with Stormy Daniels. Your politicians literally always try to hide the bad things they did. That is what politics basically. I mean, you hire firms, you hire people, communication experts, you hire PR people, you try to hide the things that you don't want people to know. I don't think it's a moral, it's especially praiseworthy on a moral plane, but it is certainly nothing weird and more importantly, nothing illegal. But like I said in the piece, this is mostly about poetic justice. Many people don't care why you get a mugshot of Trump, or why you get him fingerprinted. That's what they want. He did something wrong. That's our preconceived notion, is that he is a terrible human being and he did something wrong, etc. And all they do, by the way, is get people like myself who aren't particularly happy with Trump, or even though I think this whole formulation of anti-pro-Trump is kind of dumb, but you get people defending him. They want him to run. I'm not saying there's 3D chess here, but they want him to run. They think they can beat him, and they want everyone defending him. And but when he deserves to be defended, or not him, but the process and the
process, right? Yeah, the issue of that. I think someone else deserves to be defended this morning, as you and I are talking here on this Thursday. Is it Thursday? Yes, it's Thursday. And we'll get into it right after this. There are a lot of exhausting things in the world, but you don't want to look exhausted. You don't want to look tired, right? Let me give you my secret. Genucel, Genucel, Genucel Skincare, an amazing antioxidant-based skincare company made and manufactured right here in the United States, formulated by a pharmacist with quality ingredients. Their products are sure to smooth out lines and wrinkles and prevent new ones from coming. One of my favorites is the Deep Firming Serum. It's got stem cell technology. This stuff, just put a few drops on your fingertips, rub it into your clean skin, and you will feel it immediately. Just firm tone, plumper skin that just feels fresh. It's great. Right now you can save over 70% off Genucel. 70% off Genucel's most popular package. This is just in time for the warm spring weather that's coming. It features Genucel's Ultra Retinol that contains a powerful retinol alternative, safe on your skin in the summer sun, and Genucel's Dark Spot Corrector to reduce the appearance of dark marks and sunspots from long summer days outside that we love. We just don't like those results. So this dark spot corrector is the key. Plus, you'll still get Genucel's classic under eye bags therapy for those annoying under eye bags and puffiness. And with its immediate effects, see results in as little as 12 hours or your money back. So what have you got to lose? Don't wait. Visit Genucel.com/Michele, Michele, 1L. to save over 70% off their most popular package. Plus, every order subscription includes a luxury gift box with 2 free springtime essentials. That's 2 free gifts plus free concierge shipping for a limited time. Again, it's Genucel.com, Genucel.com/Michele with 1L, Genucel.com/Michele. David, ProPublica is a newsletter publication I am not really familiar with. I don't know that I need to be after reading what they're posting today. And their headline is, "For over 20 years, Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas has been treated to luxury vacations by billionaire Republican donor Harlan Crow." What is this based on? What do you know about these accusations against Clarence Thomas, who has faced them pretty much forever?
Yeah, he's been, the smearing of Clarence Thomas is unprecedented in American history. Just from get-go, they've been after him. ProPublica I call them Potemkin journalism. So what they do is they have a real sleek presentation, lots of vaguely journalistic sounding verbiage, cobbling together a bunch of quotes to make accusations that don't go anywhere. This story is basically telling me that Clarence Thomas has a rich friend, and that rich friend lets him stay on his yacht or occasionally, or his ranch, or, his resort. That is completely legal. He does not have to report any of that to anyone. They I'm not sure if they use the word, I think they use the word secretive. Like, if you don't send your itinerary of your vacation to the New York Times and ProPublica, you are now secretly going somewhere. This is basically the case that they're making. It is a complete smear. First of all, the key and central thing to remember about this story is that nowhere do they even come close to showing that there's any conflict of interest. Thomas has never seen a case from this guy or any case this guy's involved in. And he has a rich friend. He's a Supreme Court justice. So I think it's a despicable smear of Thomas, and it has nothing to do with his what he does on the court. Actually, I shouldn't say that. It has everything to do with what he does on the court. It's because he's an originalist that they hate him and have articles like this. But what I mean is it has nothing to do with his actions. There's nothing corrupt about it.
Right. They also, I know the Twitter frenzy is coming after Justice John Roberts as well, that, he is enabling this kind of stuff to go on his court. And so clearly, yes, that there's a political agenda here. But just getting to Clarence Thomas for a minute, I can't remember if it was a time that I was on The View, because I may have shoved those memories down deep inside of me, or when I was watching, but they actually said Clarence Thomas doesn't represent the Black community. And I thought to myself, okay, so it really isn't about skin color. This isn't about whether you're black or not black. This is about political leanings. And so is that really why you think this all started from the time, as you mentioned, his hearings, his nomination hearings, that they have gone after him because he represents black conservatism?
Well, no, I just don't. I think they generally hate the originalist part of his views, and that he is whatever conservative, though. I think that Justice Thomas would just as equally, would undermine some conservative, political agenda if he thought it was against, if it was unconstitutional. I don't think he's a perfect justice or anything, but I think he's one of our best, if not our best. So that's the first part of it. But I do think it has to do with color. I think it has to do with them not wanting someone like that on the court, standing up and showing that you don't have to walk in a pack and, you don't have to think like everyone else in your group that has immutable characteristics. There's nothing, it's just complete identitarian view of the world. It's just so destructive. You shouldn't have to. I don't have to march in a group with people who, have gray hair or something. I mean, it's just incredibly demeaning to individualism and to people to think that. But this is how the world works now, and the left thinks. And it's unfortunate. I mean, there's always been some of that going on for sure, but now it's just openly about that all the time. And I think that definitely plays into why they hate Clarence Thomas for sure.
And the fact that we're talking about hating a Supreme Court justice, that word hate, but I believe you're right. It's so strong and it's so divisive. And we'll get back to real quick the first point about Trump being arraigned and the fact that he was indicted is such a divisive moment in this country. And there are a lot of people, including Democrats, some who are saying all of this is so bad for America, but the left doesn't seem to care what's bad for America. They pretend that they do. They say they're saving the republic. They're defending democracy. They're, trying to preserve the Constitution, all the while dividing at every turn. I've become, as I've grown older and hopefully a little bit wiser, I've become so disturbed by this seemingly anti-American sentiment that lives within the Democrat Party, or at least the very left wing of it. What do you think?
Well, I think there's some truth to that, I think it's only going to get worse. But what it is, in some sense, is when politics becomes your religion, where you think all good and can only springs from some kind of policy change or something having to do with politics, you become sort of, this is what your mindset becomes. So you think either conservatives can be stupid, they can be misled by disinformation and misinformation, or they can be evil. Those are the three choices. Donald Trump is evil. George W. Bush was stupid. Reagan was stupid. You can be one or the other. You can't, it's never a good faith belief in some system that you happen to disagree with anymore. Like, think about politics or think about Twitter. No one debates anymore. It's just a flyby. Look at this racist. Look at this misogynist. Look at this transphobic person. You cannot discuss anything anymore. Everything is a smear, and then you just move on. When I started out too many years ago, it was ugly, but there were a lot of debates over policy, why something is good, why something's not, why you're, there were just debates on blogs and columns on TV. There used to be, like Crossfire, where you'd have two legitimately different point of views and people debating. I don't think there are shows like that anymore. And, because if someone who's a conservative shows up on a show on CNN or MSNBC, then or New York Times column, then the whole entire left blog Twitter sphere rises to say, how can you have this person on?
Right.
They had Marjorie Taylor Greene, who I think is an imbecile. Sorry, but they had her on 60 Minutes, which she is a known person, an elected person, a person who has views that we should hear on 60 Minutes. They're like, how could 60 Minutes even put this person on? They don't even want these people to participate in media, culture, our society in any way. They don't want to debate them. They want to destroy them. And that's a very destructive, like you say, instinct, I think.
Yeah, destroy them. It is destructive. And I agree. And I think the one thing that I see, and you said it's only going to get worse. One thing that I see happening, and maybe I'm too optimistic, you tell me if I'm naive about this, but what happened at Stanford Law was so ridiculous and childish and embarrassing for that university and that law school in particular, that the dean of DEI was, suspended, put on paid leave or whatever, that they've put out some verbiage about how we're going to be more open to all opinions. We've got other universities now, Cornell, I believe, and I think that UPenn has come out with something today about we're going to be inclusive of all ideas, not just those that, we feel strongly about. We're going to welcome other people on campus. Is that tide starting to, you think, turn even a little bit? Because the stuff that we're seeing is absolutely embarrassing.
It's obviously complicated. In some places, maybe you're going to see, there's always pushback. I mean, when you read history, you'll see there's always whenever there's some sort of revolution, whether it's violent or not, there's always a counter revolution, and it happens. And maybe Trump was the counter revolution, right? Maybe Trumpism was the counter revolution, went to to wokeism, or to kind of the abuses of the Obama era, with the way he handled power, right? But I don't know. I feel like the younger people are the more inclined. Maybe I'm wrong about this. I don't have any social science data or anything to really. It's just my gut feeling is that the younger you get, the more inclined it seems to me you are to be open to censorship, to be open to hate speech laws, to believe that speech is violence, all these illiberal ideas. And I think that people are more and more openly embracing the illiberal idea. They don't pretend that they want to any kind of neutral principle governing life, so that makes me very nervous. It's like the acceleration of accepting the pseudoscientific nonsense that you can just say I'm a girl or a boy when you're not, and become that. Yeah. It starts with it's on the fringe, then it's mainstream like that on the left. Now, if you say something, now you're just a bigot when you say that can't happen, or you say that kids shouldn't be mutilated and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, every giant company has a spokesperson now. It literally takes a year for that or 2 years for that to happen. I just don't see how you come back from that, where you have the president saying, "Oh, that's fine." People who don't allow that are actually anti-child, or whatever. I don't know. I guess I'm off topic a bit, but
you're not. You're absolutely not off topic. This is, I think you've really hit on something here. And I agree with you. I think that young people, it's really, and I don't know exactly where it begins, or if this stuff is so deep rooted now. And if we were to look back to, the 1920s or something, and started looking into the, I'll use Kamala's favorite phrase, the root causes of all this leftism, and how it's just snaked its way into so many institutions in this country. You have a lot of people now who have lost faith in those institutions. I have seen some people come over to the right that were, intensely liberal. The one I can think about is Jennifer Say, who was the former president, and I think, president of Levi's, who tweeted out stuff about, why are we masking kids? Why can't kids go back to the classroom? I'm worried about the inner city kids who don't have access to computers. She was very vocal about all this. Levi's cut ties with her, and she did not take their paycheck to be quiet about it. She's written a book. She's been very vocal. And now you see her really defending more, I don't want to say uber conservative, but more conservative stances on things. And she is looking back at her own party that I think she's probably left by now. And she's very public about what happened to her, what happened to her husband in all of this. They left California. So I hope this is a big spasm, that we're going toward the left this hard, and, transitioning 8-year-olds and these kinds of things. And that saner voices are going to say, whoa, everybody, wake up. Is that even a possibility in your mind, David?
Yeah, there are always some people who are brave who stand up, but it's not a lot. Most people, and I used to sort of criticize people for not standing up for their beliefs, but I have to say, you and I do this sort of thing for a living. So we're not most of the time, we're not going to be punished for the things we say. In fact, we might be rewarded for those things, right? Even if they're contrarian or out of the norm. But people who work in businesses, they don't, they're in a much more perilous position, right? They'll lose their jobs. There's nothing for them to do there. They're going to be ruined and things like that. So it's very difficult to stand up. So I obviously there are some people who do, some journalists who do. There's sort of this faction of people who I would call like left-wing populists who don't like this, the woke stuff. So they're kind of on this side, on that side now. As well. So there are some people, and it does happen. And, maybe we are just going to be more divided country where people who believe in some sort of things move to Florida and Texas and wherever, and others, move to Illinois or Massachusetts or whatever. And that we will have just two, will be siloed and we won't even have to deal with each other very much. And maybe that's what federalism is a good idea, and I definitely think that that's true. But there's also kind of something wrong with a nation that we used to disagree on a lot of stuff, but there were certain bigger ideals we did share: free speech, religious freedom, protecting children, things like that. And we just thought that maybe the way to get there, to get to being a virtuous place, was a different kind of system. But we believed in the end game. Now I don't think we share that at all. So that to me is worrying. But the world's world always surprises you. I mean, I thought it was all over when Barack Obama won the election in 2008. I thought we're headed towards socialism. That's it. And then the Tea Party popped up 2 years later, and it was a really big social revolution, political revolution that changed the dynamics of politics. Donald Trump came; he changed the dynamics of politics for a while, and maybe someone else will come tomorrow and that'll change the dynamics. I don't know, but I am not that. I'm pretty. I think the future is it's iffy right now that we're going to survive in the way that I think America should be, right? And I'm not, I don't know. I hate to be a big downer, but yeah, I'm not that.
You're not optimistic. I'm putting you down as a maybe. It's important to hear you say that. I think your voice is truly important and impactful. And I hope that people like you, people like Jennifer Say that I mentioned, others who are brave enough to stand up, it can at least influence others. Maybe not to stand up and speak out, but to think a certain way, to open their eyes to all this virtue signaling that we're seeing and what it's covering up and all the rest. I don't know. I'm worried too. I think about my kids and their future, and then their kids that they're going to love just as much as I love my own. It's a little scary. I hope this still is the last great hope, but we're hurting ourselves big time right now. David Harsanyi, I really urge people to follow him on Twitter and to read the piece. It's so good, and it's so meaningful and so important right now that people understand that there are two levels of justice going on right now. And it's been that way. You mentioned Lois Lerner in the article. That's one that comes to mind for me every single time. The government being weaponized. It's a terrifying time in America. And anyway, David Harsanyi, follow him on Twitter at David Harsanyi. And you'll see everything that he writes. Again, thank you so much. You're such an important voice, and I really appreciate your time.
I appreciate that. Thanks for having me.
You bet. This has been Sideline Sanity, everyone. Like David, like Jennifer Say, like, I don't know, whoever you look to as being brave, you too, be brave and do good. And thanks for listening.